The United States and Canada have long enjoyed one of the world's closest and most enduring partnerships, a relationship built on trust, shared values, and a deep sense of cooperation that has spanned generations. This partnership has been fueled by open trade and mutual benefit, allowing both nations to prosper together. The border, stretching thousands of miles, has become a symbol of economic opportunity and collaboration. For years, goods, services, and people crossed the border with remarkable ease, weaving together the economies and communities on both sides. These deep economic ties have supported millions of jobs and countless businesses, making the U.S. Canada relationship vital to both countries' prosperity. But this stability was shaken when Donald Trump became president, bringing an America-first approach to trade that challenged the status quo and unsettled long-standing agreements. Trump targeted the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, claiming it was unfair to American workers and blaming it for job losses in key industries. His administration argued that the deal needed to be renegotiated to better serve U.S. interests. To back up these claims, the administration used aggressive tactics, including imposing tariffs on steel, aluminum, and other goods, to pressure trading partners, Canada included, into making concessions. This sudden shift created widespread uncertainty, rattling markets and businesses on both sides of the border, and set the stage for a period of conflict and negotiation. Canada, whose economy is deeply linked to the U.S. through trade, watched with growing concern as new policies threatened the flow of goods and services. Canadian leaders faced mounting pressure to protect their industries and workers. The Canadian government braced for a turbulent period, knowing that the once friendly relationship was entering uncharted territory. Officials prepared for tough negotiations and possible economic fallout. The trade dispute began with talk of tariffs, taxes on imports meant to make foreign goods more expensive and protect domestic industries. These measures threatened to disrupt established supply chains and raise prices for consumers. Suddenly, the border became a line of economic conflict, not just cooperation. What was once a seamless crossing now became a potential flashpoint for trade wars and diplomatic standoffs. Years of partnership gave way to tension, as both sides struggled to defend their interests and find common ground. The strength of the U.S. Canada alliance was put to the test, like never before. The stage was set for a challenging new chapter in North American trade, one that would redefine the relationship between these two neighbors and shape the future of the continent's economy. The conflict between the United States and Canada escalated dramatically when the Trump administration announced sweeping tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, including those from its closest neighbor, Canada. This move sent shockwaves through both countries, as the announcement was made with great fanfare at the White House, signaling a major shift in trade policy. The U.S. justified these tariffs as a matter of national security, claiming that a robust domestic metals industry was essential for the country's defense and military readiness. Officials argued that relying on foreign metals could put the nation at risk during times of crisis or conflict. Canada, long considered a steadfast ally, was blindsided by the decision and deeply offended to be labeled a potential security threat. The move was seen as a betrayal, straining the close diplomatic ties between the two nations. The tariffs, 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum, hit Canadian producers especially hard, instantly making their goods more expensive for American buyers and threatening their access to the crucial U.S. market. This sudden change disrupted industries on both sides of the border, putting thousands of jobs at risk and causing uncertainty throughout supply chains that had been closely linked for decades. Canadian officials quickly pointed out that the two countries' industries were deeply integrated, with raw materials and finished products crossing the border multiple times. Hurting one side, they argued, would inevitably hurt the other. They called the tariffs unfair and unjustified, vowing to defend Canadian interests and promising a strong response to protect their economy and workers. The tariffs marked a turning point in North American trade relations. The dispute was no longer just political rhetoric. It was now causing real economic pain, with businesses and communities feeling the effects. Businesses and workers on both sides of the border felt the impact immediately, as uncertainty grew, and layoffs began to ripple through the manufacturing sector. The once friendly trade relationship between the U.S. and Canada was now an open conflict, with tensions rising and trust eroding. All eyes turned to Canada's next move, as the world watched to see how the country would respond to this unprecedented challenge. The era of easy, seamless trade between the two nations was suddenly over, replaced by uncertainty and barriers that few had anticipated. The stakes had never been higher for both nations as the future of their economic partnership and the livelihoods of millions hung in the balance. Canada didn't back down. In the face of mounting pressure and unexpected tariffs from its closest ally, the country stood united, determined to defend its economic interests and national pride. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government responded swiftly, announcing a carefully crafted package of retaliatory tariffs on a wide range of U.S. goods. This was not a knee-jerk reaction, but a calculated move designed to send a clear message to Washington. The response was strategic, targeting American steel, aluminum, and everyday products like whiskey, orange juice, and ketchup. These items were chosen not just for their economic impact, but for their symbolic value, hitting industries that mattered to American workers and voters. The goal was clear: to pressure key U.S. industries and political districts, making the pain of the trade war felt across America, especially in regions crucial to U.S. political leaders. Trudeau called the U.S. tariffs totally unacceptable, insisting that Canada would defend its interests at any cost. He emphasized that Canada would not be intimidated, and that fairness and respect must guide international trade. The Canadian public rallied behind the government's tough stance. Across the country, citizens voiced their support, waving flags and attending rallies, showing solidarity in the face of adversity. The tit-for-tat tariffs officially launched a trade war between the neighbors, turning a long-standing partnership into a tense standoff. Decades of removing barriers and building trust gave way to new taxes, stricter inspections, and a growing sense of uncertainty on both sides of the border. Businesses that relied on cross-border trade faced rising costs and unpredictability, many worried about layoffs, supply shortages, and the future of their livelihoods. The once smooth flow of goods was disrupted, shipments were delayed, warehouses sat idle, and the rhythm of trade was thrown into chaos. The economic relationship hit a low point, with both countries feeling the strain. Trust was eroded, and the cost of doing business soared. Both sides dug in, signaling a long and difficult conflict ahead. Negotiations stalled, and the prospect of a quick resolution faded. The trade war was no longer abstract, it was real, and it was personal. Families, workers, and small business owners all felt the impact in their daily lives. Canada showed it would not be bullied. The nation's resolve was clear, and its leaders stood firm, determined to protect Canadian jobs and values. The world watched as two allies became rivals, wondering how far the conflict would go, and what it would mean for the future of global trade. As the steel and aluminum dispute raged, a new conflict emerged, this time in the digital economy. Canada proposed a digital service tax on tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Amazon, arguing they should pay taxes on revenue earned from Canadian users. The U.S. saw this as a direct attack on its companies and threatened retaliation. The digital tax debate reflected a global struggle over how to tax online businesses. For Canada, it was about fairness. For the U.S., it was about protecting its economic interests. The threat of new tariffs on Canadian goods stalled broader trade negotiations. The digital tax became a major roadblock, adding complexity to the dispute. Trade wars were no longer just about physical goods. They now included data, digital services, and tax rules. The standoff showed how modern trade conflicts are evolving. Both sides faced pressure to compromise. The digital front made resolution even more challenging. The trade war had entered the 21st century. Throughout the dispute, leaders on both sides used strong public language. President Trump criticized Canadian trade practices and promised to protect American workers. Prime Minister Trudeau called the U.S. tariffs insulting and reassured Canadians he would stand firm. The war of words played out in the media, turning negotiations into political theater. Both leaders needed to appear tough for their domestic audiences. Despite the heated rhetoric, both sides knew a deal was necessary. The drama underscored the high stakes and the need for resolution. The trade war's impact was felt far beyond politics. Tariffs made goods more expensive for consumers and businesses on both sides. Industries with cross-border supply chains, like auto manufacturing, faced rising costs and uncertainty. Many companies delayed investments and hiring, unsure how long the conflict would last. Tourism also suffered, as tensions made some people hesitant to cross the border. Small towns and local businesses reliant on trade and visitors felt the pain. The economic fallout was widespread, affecting everyday lives. The shared hardship pushed both governments to seek a solution. The longer the dispute dragged on, the greater the pressure to end it. Economic reality became a powerful motivator for compromise. The conflict wasn't just about tariffs. It played out in courtrooms and diplomatic backchannels. Canada challenged the U.S. tariffs at the World Trade Organization, arguing they violated global trade rules. The legal fight was slow, but it signaled Canada's commitment to defending its interests. Diplomats from both countries worked behind the scenes, trying to manage the crisis and keep communication open. Negotiations were tense, requiring a careful balance of firmness and flexibility. The dispute tested the historic alliance between the two nations. Both governments faced pressure from industries, citizens, and international partners. The legal and diplomatic maneuvers were as important as the economic ones. Every move had far-reaching consequences for the future of U.S. Canada relations. The chess match continued, with both sides seeking an advantage. The world watched for signs of a breakthrough. After months of tension, a breakthrough came when Canada paused its digital service tax plan. This removed a major obstacle and allowed trade talks to resume. Negotiators worked through complex issues, from dairy to auto manufacturing. Both sides had to balance political promises with economic realities. The pain of tariffs and uncertainty reminded everyone how interdependent the two economies were. Eventually, the U.S. and Canada agreed to lift tariffs and sign a new trade deal, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. The agreement ended a difficult chapter and restored stability. Even in conflict, shared interests paved the way for cooperation. The lesson partnership endures even after the toughest tests. In a world of fast-moving events, reliable information is more important than ever. Understanding complex issues like trade disputes requires more than headlines. It needs clear, factual reporting. Good journalism empowers people to see beyond political rhetoric and form informed opinions. Trustworthy news sources verify facts and provide context, helping audiences make sense of complicated situations. In the U.S.-Canada trade dispute, clear reporting explained the economic, legal, and political stakes. An informed public is essential for democracy and accountability. In an age of misinformation, credible news is a critical service. Thoughtful media consumption ensures public debate is based on reality, not rumor. The trade dispute showed why reliable news matters for understanding the world. Staying informed helps us appreciate the importance of diplomacy and cooperation.